Discovery.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's about other podcasts, where every single week we have a book club style discussion about a podcast. And at the end of this episode, we're going to have a brand new recommendation. We'll talk about that one next week. I'm Kirk.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we're talking about my recommendation, The Secret Room. And I don't remember how I stumbled across this. I actually think it was recommended to me on Spotify. And I listened to a few episodes and I really liked the show. And I liked it reminded me of the apology line in a way, you know, like people could tell their stories that are, you know, secrets. And what I did look up their Twitter and stuff. And it's funny because they do have pictures that coincide with this. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But a lot of the stories that they talk about, they'll have like the people's faces blurred out and stuff. So it's like they're still anonymous, some of these people that have told the stories. In fact, this story, Karen, that was her name, is anonymous as well on there.
Oh,
I wonder if that's her real name, actually. I don't even know.
Probably not, honestly.
Yeah, probably not. But the show, that's what the whole purpose of the show is. They have people call in or people be part of the show and to tell their secrets, something that they've never really told anybody before, or something that is just really interesting that they have kind of kept to themselves or someone else has kept from them. That was the interesting thing. Cause like I told you guys last week, that guy that didn't know that when he was a child, he had cancer until he was an adult and couldn't have kids.
Yeah.
Like his whole family had kept a secret from him. So that's what's it's interesting, but the show's great. It's of course extremely well produced. It is an indie show, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, you mean they still have like a major network they're produced by? Because right. I think that it's like a fairly popular show and it sounds great.
Yeah. The show is hosted by Ben Ham and it's produced by Susie Lark with help from Sechelle Brooks, Alessandro and Chet, and the street secret producer is Lisa Alex. So yeah, what did you guys think about the show?
Honestly, you told me that it was kind of like the culty thing, so I was waiting for kind of that punchline. But honestly, that he's a really great interviewer. It sounds fantastic, and he really does pull a very strong story out of an interviewee because she's kind of walking through this whole thing, and I didn't realize that she was just hiking. And one of the things I found out about this show, and I'd heard about it before, but I looked it up afterwards, is called woofing.
Yes.
That's
was a thing.
Pretty cool. So I did look this up, and yeah, it's just worldwide opportunities on organic farms. And literally you can just like sign
it's
up.
Always on farms.
Yes, It's farming. Yeah, it's a farming like work share type thing.
Yeah, you work
so
there, you live
work
there.
For boarding, right? Like basically for food and boarding maybe?
Yeah, and it's international as well, but there's like a US group. So I think this is like a legitimate way to travel. This
seems like something I would actually really do.
It would be really fun. I mean, you might accidentally stumble into a sex cult, but it's a really cool thing. Other than that, if you can avoid that, it sounds really cool.
Well, listen, if you know you're getting into a sex cult, you know, the issue is that she didn't know it.
Yeah, you know? I guess that is the problem. You need to have some context going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not know enough about woofing, and I didn't know what it was until she started talking about it. But I also didn't know anything about the Pacific Crest Trail. Like I didn't know that was a thing. So is it? I don't know enough about it still.
It's kind of like the West Coast response to the Appalachian Trail, from what I remember, and it literally just goes all the way up the coast.
So it's from Mexico to Canada.
Yes, it's really hardcore. And I did look this up as well because there's a Pacific Crest Trail Association, just like how the Appalachian Trail works. It's a volunteer maintained trail. So you can like volunteer your time to like clean up a certain area, or they like will do projects to restore parts of the trail. And both of the coasts have the same thing on the large trail. Is there's a huge network of people that are just supporting that these trails are there. And then like Appalachian Trail, they have all those things where like you can kind of stay along it. There's like food stops along the trail and there's all these things. So it's really this whole kind of ecosystem of people working around these things. So she was going on this trail, and what did she say? She hurt herself, right? She hurt herself, and that's what took her off the what was her knee?
What she hurt. I don't remember. I don't remember what she hurt.
I can't remember specifically. Ankle? I can't remember specifically.
I don't remember. But either. Yeah, she got hurt. And she needed to rest, basically. She needed to like rest her hurt body part, whatever it was.
That makes it sound worse.
Yeah, it does. Dig it. Especially going into the sex cult.
Yeah, especially going right into where she ends up. But so she found a way to take a break, and she woofed and stayed on a farm that they called themselves an intentional community. And that's they didn't really indicate. They didn't. Well, at least they didn't advertise. Hey, everyone, this is a sex cult. Our leader has lots of ladies, but he'd like a few more if you'd like to join.
Well, and I think that she joined that because she couldn't hike up the snow alone. She'd never done that. Because she said she got injured, flew like left, healed, came back, started hiking again, and then encountered snow, and then left again, and then was Googling woofing places. And then, it was great. Her walking through, like telling her mom about it.
Yeah. And I love how her mom, first thing she does is Google it.
Yeah.
And she's like, there's some bad stories about this place.
It's hilarious that she picked out one that explicitly warned her about this, that there's cults up there in them mountains and you need to watch out.
And then she's like, well, I already got the plane ticket. I'm like, that's not a commitment to stay with these people.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
And it was weird because I feel like she still felt like this kind of like, because she did end up signing a contract with them, which
that would have been my first like, I'm not like, I was here to like pull some weeds or something. Like I don't need to sign a contract for this. That would be my first thing of like, I'm getting sketched out by these people.
Getting a Skype interview to stay there
that would make a little more sense because they have to let you in. You see what I mean? I would get the Skype interview.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially, it could go the other way too, where if somebody was like really into sex cults but wasn't like in one and was like looking for one and like signed up for your farm, and then you're like, all right, you need to go clean out that barn. And he's like, hey, does anybody want to have sex? That would also be a problem. And so you need to have these interviews beforehand just to avoid that.
Which is also how my girlfriend and I work. Hey, okay. No, but
Skype interview required.
Yes, exactly. I felt for Karen the whole time.
Yeah, me too.
I was kind of like, man, if I bought a plane ticket, there's no way in hell I would lose money on it. I'm like, I'm going. I'd be going, and I'd be like, this is sketching me out. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to leave my room or whatever. Like, I'm just going to work. I'm like, eat. I'm not leaving my room, though. Whatever.
No, she did have an awesome, like, approach to it because she was doing the things, but then she also wasn't, like, just kind of going with the flow. Right. Because it did start to get weird fairly quickly after she got there, which I guess to be expected. But like it started getting weird and she wouldn't always just go with it. You know, she wasn't just like immediately drinking the Kool-Aid of this cult. She was there for a reason. She was there for 2 weeks. And I think she was kind of just doing what any of us would do in that situation. Like, oh man, okay, 2 weeks is this day. We're counting down to that day because I need to get out of here now.
But what was weird is she ended up actually staying a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. She ended up staying a little bit longer, but she had her own reasons for that because they don't leave very often or whatever. But and I think she had kind of gotten used to it. And she said she did appreciate the home cooked meal and not having to hike.
The food was great. I would love to read her Yelp review of this farm.
Sex cult. 1 star for the sex cult, 5 stars for the home cooked meals.
Those 5 wives can cook. They're great.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Yeah. As soon as she mentioned that there were 5 wives at the table with them, it was like, oh.
I love how she talked and the host, Ben, was like, how did you not figure it out? Because after dinner, the men would go and ask the women for dates, quote unquote, when they're all living at the same place. And then they would be gone for 20 or 30 minutes.
They call that
this
speed
weird
dating.
dungeon thing.
Yeah, it's just speed dating.
And they would come back. And she'd be like, yeah, I thought it was weird, but I didn't know. And so he's like, seriously? How'd you not figure it out?
No, I mean, that's just what speed dating is. If you ever see speed dating advertised at your local Applebee's, that's exactly what's happening down there.
There's a weird sex dungeon in the Applebee's?
Yeah, and it's 20-minute increments, and you go to the sex dungeon, and then you go get some half-price appetizers. It's a treat.
Their version of speed dating is condensing the entire date versus going in between people. Yeah, I loved when she brought up the shack with the red light. and I just loved her being like, I did not want to go there. I knew that. It's like,
but I think the creepiest part for sure was, well, I guess back up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The weird dude had 2 kids, and I guess they were around her age. Because the weird dude, the man that was
the
over
cult
everything,
leader, essentially,
the cult leader, had the 5 wives guy. He was like in the 60s, but he had kids that were her age and the age of her, I guess, the person that also was staying there woofing at the same time. And I just remember the part of the story where she talks about, he asks her, so do you think you could ever like find yourself living in a place like this?
Soft pitch shit.
It was like a soft pitch of like, hey, you want to stay here? You want to be my missus? You want to be my first wife?
Yeah, it's like, I got to start somewhere. You're perfect.
She's like, no, I don't think I could ever stay somewhere like this. Do you think you could ever leave? And I thought that was cool that she was like, no, I can't stay. And also, do you think you could ever leave? But it got really weird when they had like the tent night where God. The 2 guys took the 2 girls to a sleepover in the tent. And I think that one didn't go the way the guys were hoping.
It seems that way. They thought it was going to be easier. It was like, well, we're here. That's how this works, right?
I did love the tickling. It was like, and then the host being like, oh, he shot his shot. Like, that's his move, huh?
Yeah.
Like, tickling.
No, and the weirdest part to me about the tickling was both of them did it at the same time. They're like, okay. They like had a brother conference. They're like, you know what?
They have like a,
I know the move here.
When I wink.
Trust me on this. If we both tickle them at the same time, they will be so uncontrollably aroused that this tent is going to be wrecked for the next night. Just don't even worry about it. And then they execute it and it immediately does nothing because that's insane. And then it's like, well, that plan was bulletproof.
What do we do?
Well, I'm out of ideas. Yeah.
the one idea.
Good God.
But I mean, this does sound like some young dudes that were super sheltered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Homeschooled out of cult ideas right here.
But that was super creepy. But I do love how she's like, I did feel creeped out enough that I brought my knife. She like took a knife.
Yeah.
With her.
No, honestly, she's awesome the whole time. She was awesome the whole time because it
was weird. She had a balance of super naive, but also like, I don't know about this. I'm taking a knife.
Yeah. Like it wasn't completely naive. You know, it was also something where she's like, this is weird.
She got what she wanted out of this. She got her home cooked meals.
Yeah. She got home cooked meals. She got hit on by some weirdos.
Yeah. I mean, you know, she put up the walls where she needed to and then did her thing.
Do any of these utopias / compounds exist that aren't weird like this?
That's what I always wonder this because we've covered a lot of these that are about cults.
It sounds awesome. And then it always has to be weird. Why is it always got to be weird?
Well, they always like trick you into thinking that it's because they always call it something like a, what's the title of this? It's like
it's an intentional community.
Yeah, intentional community. No, they always try and make it things that's like, we're trying to build a community of like-minded, awesome people, and we're just going to live and be happy.
What was their pitch? Like, we want to have fun and something else.
They were really focused on fun, which also it makes sense. Like after
tickling, yeah,
it makes sense after you learn more about it. But they even said up front how much they were into fun. Which, okay, if somebody just came up to me and said like, "Oh, we love fun,"
yeah,
no, seriously, fun is part of it. That's part of this contract you're signing. Fun. We're going to have it. You're going to be doing it. Everybody's going to be doing it. Fun.
Everyone's going to do the fun.
And then that would freak me out in general.
Sign that.
Yeah. It's like, well, I like fun. Who doesn't really?
Oh my God. Yeah. You're either in a sex cult or you love 30 Seconds to Mars. Like those are the two cults. Those are the two cults right now.
He does have a really, really strange following.
He does.
And I think that part of how all this
is there
is
something I don't know about?
Yeah.
30 Seconds to Mars?
Okay, well, 30 Seconds to Mars, like fans
I know who they are.
No, but
I didn't know that there was
Jared Leto
a stereotype of the fans.
No, there's like a different level of fan, because there's people who are like, oh, I heard their one song on the radio once, and then there's people who are like, I'm into 30 Seconds to Mars, and that's where it gets creepy.
No, it's did you guys not know that he has a cult? Like Jared Leto, he has a cult.
He has an actual cult now?
He was one of the. There was a huge headline about how all these people that attended Jared Leto Festival. It wasn't Jared. I don't know what it was called, but it was
Jared Leto Fest.
Everyone wore white.
Leto Fest,
and he just like proselytized to people. And the headline was that all these people didn't know that there was a pandemic happening because they were here for like 3-4 months. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to look more into that, and that's going to be a Discovery next week. We're going to have
I'm literally looking into it right now.
I also love that you took that reference to 30 Seconds to Mars, Zach, and made it into like fandom on 30 Seconds.
No, but like, have you seen him like being like, he really does want this? I think that's the key.
Oh, shoot.
Is that people want to be like that leader person, and that's when they go
cult
right.
In Croatia.
Oh, I didn't know he started an actual cult. I just knew that he
started
wants
an actual cult in Croatia.
I've seen some of his performances where he like, it's really, really unsettling. It's very, very weird because he'll literally just kind of like stand there and bask in like the adoration of his fans. It's very, very weird. So yeah, I didn't know that he had a literal cult as well. So
It's called the Echelon.
Oh God.
Jesus.
So yeah, we're gonna have to look into this more.
Name.
We're gonna find more information on this. We're gonna talk about that next week because that's insane.
Man, we just want you to come down. We want you to sign this contract about how you listen to 30 Seconds to Mars all the time. But number one, have fun.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Hey girl, you have fun with me? Let's go have some fun.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, no, that's the word from the chat right now. Is that homeschool taught them that the word for sex is fun, and so it was the subtext of the entire pitch that they were putting out there. But yeah, no, it's an insane situation she was put into. It didn't sound particularly violent or anything, just a bunch of weirdos, and then she did end up escaping unscathed.
Yeah. And she did talk about like, they had like family nights and stuff, and like dinner was like super awkward because there'd be like 15 people at this table. Food was great, but conversation was lacking. And but I will give her credit because she didn't finish the trail. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. She didn't finish the trail. But she did 1,000 miles. That's a long way to freaking hike, right? That's like half of the trail almost. That's a long way. How long is the Appalachian Trail? Now I want to do the Appalachian Trail. Really bad.
But the thing is, it's all so intense. Like you're talking about months at a time doing this. And so it's you really have to kind of commit to it. But it is extremely the people who've done it say it's very rewarding. There's a book about this.
Wild.
Somebody did the Appalachian Trail and like wrote the whole thing. And like kind of categorized everything as they're going through it and the different things they experience. Because literally Appalachian Trail, I think, is like Blue Ridge, Georgia area to literally Maine.
So these trails, do they like, is it like a path the whole way, or is it like part of it like road, part of it just woods?
That's part
Like,
of what
how does that?
like the community around it does, is trying to like make sure those paths are clear. Some are more easy hiking than others. You know, some areas are more because it's so long. And yeah, there's probably some that they just like, if something happened, they'll divert it to a little road there for a minute. But yeah, it's really just, it's so long. They kind of just have to do what they can do.
Because that reminds me of there's one in Europe that I think it's based off of the trail that supposedly one of the apostles walked.
Oh,
or
that
something.
pilgrimage through like Spain.
Yeah. And you can stop in all these places and you can live at these people's houses for free and they'll give you a meal. And it's like this special meal. And like, it sounds awesome. My mom actually did part of it. But it was something that I always wanted to do because it goes through like 7 countries or something ridiculous.
Jeez.
But it's Europe. So it's like 3 miles and you've gone through 4 countries. But it sounds really cool. And like, I just like the whole thing of like this adventure of meeting new people and you're staying at someone's house. That's what they do, is they let people stay there that are pilgrims, as they call them, you know, doing this pilgrimage.
Well, it's so interesting how it's all set up, because it's essentially like she's setting up that she's doing this trail. She's never done a trail. She didn't do any training. She didn't do any of that stuff. I did love
that. It's like, so did you train for a long time? Not like, really.
Maybe a little bit. She's like,
I watched some YouTube videos.
Yeah, I love that. But
and that's probably why she was so offended when the weird sex guy asked her, like, "Oh, were your legs this thick before you started hiking?" She's like, "Man, I have been hiking, you dick." Like, it's such a terrible question to ask somebody, first of all. But like,
so bad.
There was a lot of these things that, like, once you hear the story, you're like, oh, well, he's a pervert. That's why he was being all perverty the whole time.
But it's just crazy, because while you're hiking one of these trails, you do have to readily give your trust to people that you have never met, you will never know again. Because they're called trail angels, and they set up little shacks and stuff. And just like you were saying, in that pilgrimage, they have houses, food, all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, you could walk into a crazy person's house, and this person did.
I guess the only thing is, like, if they're quote unquote a trail angel, then most likely hundreds of other people have already stayed here, and they didn't be crazy with them.
Yeah.
So. Hopefully they're not a brand new one.
No, she said
I don't want to be the one trying them out for the first time.
She said that even about Woof on the place where she went. The sex cult afterwards started getting like more negative reviews, like delicious food, also sex cult.
I can't fathom. I want to see like a scene of a trail angel's first day. You know, nobody trusts them. Just wants to help.
Everybody's just like looking at their door and like running back in the woods.
Okay, so like I said, I did look up, because they mentioned at the end of the episode that they had some pictures. And so they have the picture of her at the beginning of the trail and her face is blurred out. Her and the older woman that was doing it as well, that was like in her 60s, that they thought was like a mother and daughter thing. Everyone's face is blurred out. They do have the shack, the picture of the shack. And I love they spelled it with a AQUE. That's how they spelled shack. And there you can see where the light is. It's a nice looking shack. But my favorite thing is the last picture is of a bunch of hogs that they obviously were raising. But for some reason, they blurred out one of the hogs' faces. And there's no context to it. It's just everyone else, all the faces are blurred out on the people, and one pig's face is blurred out.
That's their special pig, and they can't have his identity getting out.
I love it. I just assumed that it's a like an intern's like little inside joke. Just like the last picture, you have to click on the link to like look at all the pictures. In the last one, they have one of the pig's faces blurred out. Great.
Yeah, I will say that I was glad that this ended without this person having to actually deal, like, get out of a sex cult. You know?
Yeah, with like trauma, or like having to actually,
or trying to like run away.
Ask for help.
Kind of like, all right, we'll see you later, idiots.
Yeah. Hey, this is a sex cult. I'm out of here. And they're like, that's fair.
That seems, I mean, it's accurate.
I mean, I guess that's the best sex cult. You want it to be, it's
no, they
mutual?
said it. They're just trying to be, they're just trying to have fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
It's just fun.
Just
guys.
a fun time.
Fun for everyone.
But yeah, really good show. I definitely can see why you like that one.
Yeah, consensual. Nope, that's
Consensual.
Consensual
Sex cults. I don't even know what consensual is, but it adds another sex in there. But yeah, no, it's a really good show, and I could definitely see why you like it, Kirk. You know, it definitely seems right in your wheelhouse as far as like kind of the Moth and things like that, where people are sharing stories where they didn't think they were going to share them, or it's kind of a weird niche thing. But the interviewer is great. It sounds fantastic. And so definitely probably a fun way to just go hear some crazy stories, because usually by this point in a show's life, you're getting the crazy stuff. Nobody's going to come to you with a boring story at this point. So it's usually going to be wild.
If they know it's a safe space, it's going to be some crazy stories. Right. And that was what their whole purpose was when they started it, is they wanted to be able to build a place where it felt safe for people to tell their secrets. And so like when they talk about it on their website, that's what they talk about, their concept when they first started.
Can I tell you, I knew that was the concept. And when she said her name was Karen, I was like, well, what the heck? Never once occurred to me that that's not her name.
They said her name immediately. They did a terrible job.
I was also like, she does not sound like a Karen.
She probably isn't.
There we go.
So I actually have a discovery for next week, or recommendation, that we've listened to one close to it before. We covered a show called Van Sounds, and the host of that show, named Phil Corbett, has started a new show. So Van Sounds was essentially, he rolled around in his van. There was a lot of real heavy emphasis on the audio.
That was an interesting show.
Of like building an atmosphere. And he has a new show called The Wind. And The Wind, he literally bought, I guess, a cabin out in the woods. He built a desk just literally in the middle of the woods. It's like 3 stumps. So like a chair stump, 2 like brace stumps, and put a piece of wood across the top. And that's where he records his podcast. He does a lot of phone call interviews and stuff like that. And he gets a lot of audio from the natural environment that he's in. And he covers a lot of interesting topics. I will say on their website, it's not on Spotify, so we can't technically recommend it, because I don't know if it's available to like see or listen to anywhere. But he did say that he interviewed Joe Exotic in 2016, and the phone call for that is available on his website, which we will link. But no, the episode that I would like to recommend is called Frontier Music, and the idea of this is, not only was like the kind of lore mythology behind like the settling of the West always been like pushed up, you know, and kind of glorified, and also kind of not necessarily as accurate as it was. It also directly played into like Western films and the sound of those films. And so this is a whole breakdown of how these things tied together, like how the West was like became mythology, and then how this plays out in literal media about these things. So yeah, this the recommendation is called The Wind, and the episode is Frontier Music.
Nice.
Interesting. No, that's fascinating. And I do remember Van Sounds. That was a very interesting show. It was about like hitchhiking, the one we listened to, right? His was,
yeah. And I think he actually did a follow-up to that episode, because it's just one guy. I think he was a reporter, and so he just kind of does whatever he wants to do. But he has an episode of The Wind called A Hobo, a Tramp, and a Bum that talks about the difference between these words and their origin.
That sounds fascinating too. I might listen to that one after listening to Frontier Music.
Sometimes you hear people, and I think it's literally just him. He might have like a producer of some kind, but I think he's just doing this, and he just thinks differently than other people. So
yeah, I can tell that with Van Sounds.
Yeah.
This is a person that thinks of sound as more of an artistic medium.
Yeah, and I think he wanted to do that too. The premise of The Wind is this is a show about listening, and so he has a lot of really cool concepts. It's super interesting to hear about kind of how our view of what happened in like the settling of the West has changed, and how that's been like reflected in some of the most famous movies in like American cinema history. So
yeah, I would almost venture that most of what us three know about the West is like based off of like old movies and like lore. Because I don't know a lot about
Can I
the
tell you?
actual historical West.
In college,
It's-
like even in college, I took a American Frontier class, and it was
Really?
we watched The Last of the Mohicans. Like that was. He
That's
was
not
like, "This
as
is a
bad
good
as
one."
it could have been. That's a good
No.
one for
Wasn't it
as
a
far as
John
it
Wayne
goes.
movie?
No,
Yeah.
Rio Bravo is definitely in this, and that's honestly one of my favorite because you have Dean Martin in there. You know, there's like
Yeah.
song numbers. It's a great movie. But yeah, they talk about all of these types of things. But yeah, I read Blood Meridian, and it made me forever be scared of the frontier. And so now I like listening to these where it kind of talks about some of the realism.
Huh.
But yeah, and remember,
There's always more to discover.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network.
You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.